Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And today, in our 4-part series on unraveling, we're talking about perfectionism. We're talking about being perfect. We're talking about all the perfect pieces that pop up into our perfect little brains in this perfect little world. And we are in this series where we're peeling back and unpacking some of these buzzwords that kind of float around in the healing world. And we're exploring like actual mind and body practices that support our healing. And so this is brought to you by our lovely friends and partners at the Loveland Foundation.
We are diving into the various impacts of our struggles with mental health as it relates to Black women specifically. We want us to journey back to ourselves. That is what's most important, and that's what we are devoted to. And we're using this time to unpeel or unravel some of the topics that we may not even realize we need to look into. And all of this is just to bring us home to ourselves so that we can experience more of our wholeness. Why? Because there is so much misinformation happening. There are so many infographics, y'all. I mean,
so many colors,
the bold prints,
so many percentages.
The bold prints. I mean, I love it. It's cool. Yeah. But it's not going deep into where we can experience our wholeness. And that is what we want us to do. So we're going beyond the bold prints into bold change. Ooh, and we're very excited.
Beyond the bold print to the bold change. Okay, tagline. We just got it on our very last one, but good job, tagline. I love it. Okay, so we're talking about perfectionism. Full confession. I am totally 100% a recovering perfectionist. I am not just a facilitator of the workshops. I too am a client. I am a whole recovering perfectionist. Hard stop. That's the intro sentence. That's what it is. Latoya?
Oh yeah, me? Am I a perfectionist? Yeah. Oh yeah, maybe. I'm definitely a perfectionist. So much so that it's presenting itself here now.
It's showing up in this moment.
It's showing up here now.
Be professional.
Okay. Professional. So yeah, perfectionism is definitely something that I am and move through and do my best to liberate myself from.
So you want to hear a secret?
Please.
Let me tell you a little bit about the myth of perfectionism and the thing I have learned, but I'm still working through. So here's the thing, because a lot of times like perfectionism becomes that little humble brag. We'd be like, well, what is your biggest weakness? Like when you're in a job interview, like, oh, I'm just a perfectionist. But actually, it means I get everything done. Here's the thing about perfectionism. That's not why we reach our lofty goals. That's not why we excel in academia. That's not why we're appointed to prominent roles. That's motivation. That's discipline. And that's drive. Perfectionism is the shield that we activate when we don't feel seen, safe, or protected. It's when we don't believe our enough is enough. And specifically for Black women, it's because we are told our enough isn't enough.
I still didn't get my fan. Y'all, I usually have a fan on deck because okay, yeah, that makes all the sense. Yeah.
I mean, because it's like, well, you know, because here's what's happened. Here's what happens with this particular coping mechanism and why it can be so insidious, because you get positive results from it. It's not like other coping mechanisms, or to be quite honest, other addictions, because people can be addicted to perfection. People can be addicted to perfectionism, and you don't have quote unquote negative outcomes because of it, right? And so because you show up in very specific ways with certain behavioral traits that are connected to perfection and perfectionism, you get, you know, your goals get met. You reach these heights, you have these high standards, and these things are met. And so you assume, well, this isn't a bad thing that I'm exhibiting, but those things that you are getting do not come from perfectionism. In fact, perfectionism really is the thing that is eroding the best part of who you are. And if you paid attention to our last video, and if you hadn't watched it yet, please go back and watch it. The entire video is about shame. When you have shame and you don't believe you are enough, you start to incorporate and activate certain coping mechanisms in order to present this outward image of yourself. Perfectionism is a big one that you do. And so all of us who, and I'm going to be honest with, struggle with and work through perfectionism, we all have this moment like where we understand that perfectionism can be used as a tool to like keep us safe, right? Mm-hmm. Or at the very least, when we say safety, what we really means is it helps us it helps us to stay in control when we feel out of control.
That's it.
That's actually what perfectionism is doing, right? It's this false sense of staying in control because something has happened where you were completely out of control and certain things were outside of your control, and it created a level of fear and anxiety and stress. And it's like, I will never feel that way again. And so what do I do where I can cross every T, dot every I, play out every scenario in my mind where I won't be caught off guard and where I won't have a chance to be rejected, where I won't have the opportunity that something can come get me. Perfectionism actually is not about like always being in control. Perfectionism is truly about trying to make sure that you feel safe by any means necessary, right? And so it's possibly like when you were younger, and all of this does happen like when we are young or some significant moment happens to us. And so maybe it's an encounter with a sibling or a friend, maybe it's a parent or a relative, and they make a disparaging comment about you that imprints on you in ways that you may not even realize it has shaped your core beliefs and who you believe that you are. Maybe it's an unqualified teacher or a mentor who projected their inadequacies onto you. Maybe it's an unwanted experience with abuse, loss, or violence. Whatever the moment might be, it sparks something in us that connects perfectionism to safety. And then here we are.
Okay. So
tell me what you think.
Okay. I'm feeling a lot because my question is this a symptom of perfectionism when I get, if I'm going to disappoint someone and the fear that grips me if there's a possibility of disappointing someone makes me want to dot every I, cross every T, check and recheck. Oh my gosh, it really, to this day, it will consume me. If there is a possibility that I will disappoint someone or not meet something, I will become so overwhelmed and I'm not saying that it's happened. I'm saying I'm thinking that if there's a possibility I can disappoint, I need to make sure I get it is a terror that I carry, and it's a big fear that I will carry. So I try to make sure I get it done. And that is me trying to control the situation, or that's me wanting to be safe because of a core belief that has been installed because of something that's happened. I mean, for sure, my upbringing was very strict. So
it could be both, right? And so the desire for control comes from a need for safety.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
If I've never felt safe, if I can control my environment, then I can make myself feel safe.
I feel like I'm being called out. I really feel like I'm
also said recovering. Also, some days I'm like, nah, y'all about to get all of this. All of this in here. I think that's the piece that there's a disconnect there, right? Perfectionism, yes, it is on some level around like, I need to control the situation, but the motivation is different. Yeah. I need to control this so I feel safe, so I feel okay, right? And so to your scenario, around like, I play out every scenario in my head. I have to make sure this happens because if I disappoint this person, they're going to see me how I already see myself. Yeah, and the facade will be broken. And they will know these deep-seated, horrible insecurities that I have about myself that I do a really great job of. I might not even know that they're there anymore.
Right. Ooh. That's where, years of therapy has like shown me myself. Anyway, and friends who are therapists have shown me myself. I'm seeing that overlapping or that connection with shame there. I'm seeing that there 100% because I definitely have had many times and many instances where I'm thinking of every scenario and if they will see me, they will see who I see myself as in a specific area of my life. Like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be seen as this, or I don't want to be thought of. And to be very vulnerable.
Mm.
It's a very specific thing that I didn't want to be seen as. I was carrying so much shame, guilt as well, anger, lots of different things around the possibility of becoming my mother. That was something that I just, I was, now I have freed myself from that, but this was something that I carried for much of my life. And that meant that I had to be someone else. And that meant that I needed to be because that was a flawed way of living and being in my eyes. And so the way that I moved through this world, let me be everything other than that. If there is a possibility this is something that she would do, I got to stay away from it, even if it was a natural thing for me. So I would perform or posture, or there would be some way that I needed to show up. And if I showed up and that something was revealed that would, if someone was familiar with her, be like, oh, you remind me of Maria. I can't take it. It's like a breakdown of my sensibilities. This is no longer how I'm moving through the world. However, this is something that I carried for a very long time, and it informed the decisions that I made and how I moved through this world.
Yep.
And I didn't even attach it to being a perfectionist, but it's feeling like that's really what it had to do a lot to do with, because there was a breakdown and a disrupt in the safety of our relationship. Okay.
See, safety. So here's the thing. Brene Brown, like she's, a world-renowned speaker and scientist as it relates to shame. She says that shame is the birthplace of perfectionism. Okay. Well, if shame is the birthplace, then trauma is its conception. Because in an effort to understand and deal with our trauma, we create coping mechanisms to protect us. And perfectionism manifests as that protector when we try to overcompensate, overachieve, overthink, and undervalue ourselves. That's how that starts to that's how all that starts to show up, right? And here's the other tricky piece around perfectionism. There's a praise and validation for high achievement. And like there's this criticism and punishment and shaming of people for perceived shortcomings and mistakes. Yeah. And so then it all continues to get reinforced. And so you have these perceived external standards that can lead to anxiety and low confidence and the I'll never be enough. And so I have to continue to put on this facade. They can't ever see me sweat. I always have to, be the best at all that I do. That is how perfectionism also tends to show up. And you may not necessarily say, I'm being a perfectionist, but it is coming up for you. The inability to feel safe in your own authentic body is how perfectionism often shows up. And a big driver of that specifically now is the rise of social media.
Oh, God. Yeah. So my question to you is, does that mean when I am, for example, I'm in a work environment and maybe I have a leadership role, or maybe I have responsibilities that are, more than others in my team or whatever. Does that mean that they're a symptom of my perfectionist living or lifestyle is I take on things that maybe I don't have the capacity to do and stress myself out about it and like it be the most? Or I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. I can take on that. I can do that. Yeah, sure. Because it's like, hey, I'm a high achiever. I got this. I can do it, and I make it look easy. But I take on more than I need to take on, and then I beat myself up about it. Is that something that is working through and around the symptoms of being a perfectionist?
Let me ask you a question. Why do you take it on? How does that serve you?
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
Is it validating?
Oh, for me, that I can get it done and that I'm enough and that I am worthy and I am supposed to be here and I am qualified for this and all of the things.
All of the things. And all of the things. When you don't feel safe, it is hard to feel that you are enough.
Yeah.
Because if I was safe, these things wouldn't happen to me. these experiences, if I were good enough, these experiences wouldn't be happening to me. Why me? Why? There has to be something within me, because a lot of times, especially when we're young, and that's kind of where these little seeds get planted, to be completely honest, specifically around Black and brown people. Intentionally, as we're, talking about Black women, there is this, you have to be better than, twice as good, all the things, right? And so it's this seed of, you have to be more than enough. And your enough is not enough. And you are born into a world where you are told your enough is not enough. So you're already starting at this deficit where you don't feel enough and you don't feel safe. And so you don't know how to get that validation internally. And so we turn external to get it. I'll take on the project. I'll bake the cake. I'll take care of the carpool for the next 9 weeks, even though, I've been sick for 2.5.
Right,
I'll manage, I'll handle, I'll take care, I can. Yeah. And there's actually a cycle as it relates to perfectionism, where you take on like these very high performing things, or you take on these things where you create these very high expectations for yourself. And then if you don't meet them, it's the cycle of shame. And you're like, see, I'm not good enough. See, I'm not worthy. See, I'm not, see, I'm not, see, I'm not. And you go down this spiral and you don't feel safe. And so then you have to take on something else so you can counter that feeling. Or you do meet the expectation and you don't even feel joy. You just feel relief that it's over.
Yes.
And then it starts again.
That part.
Because it's constantly a facade that you are trying to maintain.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I started to take off my perfectionist cape, or whatever you want to call it, I went to an extreme. I can laugh now. Y'all, I went to an extreme. I was like, I can do it.
Cold turkey. So what did okay, what does your extreme look like?
Okay. Oh, don't hey now. Hey now. Hey now. So for me, my extreme was absolutely no to everything. I'm not doing absolutely anything. It looked like a shutdown. And I literally shut everything down. When I was in corporate, I had left corporate. When I had my own passion pursuit business, I closed everything down. I stopped everything, and I was just being. And anybody asked me anything, I can't do anything. I'm not doing anything, nothing. No. It was just a bunch of no's. And it was a relief, actually. I actually felt good. However, there was 100%, I need to do this. I may need to do this. No. But I would force myself to not do anything, if that makes sense. I forced myself to just be. And it looked like laying in the bed, sleeping in. It looked like going for walks, doing the things that I considered to be very healthy. However, I don't think I was like a contributing person to society, contributing to society in any way. And I took that time. It was an extreme. I think it was an extreme. I don't regret it, but it definitely was. Everybody knew, LaDawn, she's going to say no. She's not doing anything for anybody, for herself.
So a couple of things happened in that situation. And I can say I too went to the other extreme. So a couple of things happened in your story, and I'll share one of my own. So we're in this together. So for your example specifically, you just traded one perfectionism for another. You just changed the container, right? We didn't actually work on and heal the thing we needed to heal. It was just like, I'm going to say yes to everything. Now I'm going to say no to everything. Everything is a no, but it didn't get to the why. So that was your response to being burned out, but it didn't get to the why of the need. And this is what this is what often happens. Perfectionism kind of puts you in an extreme place, and then you swing to the other side of the pendulum, and your extreme becomes something else, but it's still an extreme, right?
And I was absolutely, so I felt a relief initially, but then I started to feel unfulfilled, and I didn't feel satisfaction. So then I started to get to my why. I needed to get to my why. That looked like, okay, let's call up a therapist. Let's get into this. We're doing this work. I guess now I need to do this work.
This is where multiple things can be true, where the positive effects of being a perfectionist gets you these where you assume like really it's drive and motivation and
Right.
discipline, but you assume like this perfectionism is getting me all these accolades and things. This other side of it, this complete intent on not doing anything and saying no, allowed your body to rest. And so you got some positive things from it, and which is why we have to be so careful and so mindful when we stay in an extreme place, because there are perceived benefits from it, but it doesn't mean it's the motivation, right? The action and the behavior can yield a certain result, but it's the motivation. And then the motivation in that experience was going from one extreme to the other to still control your situation.
Still control the
safe.
I mean, yeah. Listen, y'all, this is in the past. This is not now.
But wait, I only know this because of the countless situations of me being like, oh, okay, so you know what? I'm just not going to do that anymore. Like my solution to realizing I have this problem is jumping right into fixing it. And the fix is just to not ever do it again. And it's not about the behavior as much as it is about the why. And we don't sit in the why with perfectionism, because perfectionism robs us of our humanity. It doesn't allow us to be human and messy and whole and confused and not have an answer. Perfectionists have an answer for everything.
Okay. So one of the things that I learned around being, as you would call it, a recovering perfectionist is not always having the answer. I really enjoy these days. I mean, it's been several years, but I really enjoy saying, I don't know. It's a pleasure. It's an actual pleasure for me to say, I don't know. I'm not sure. I have no idea. What do you think? It is something that I have taken on, and it's such a relief, and it creates some space for dialogue. It relieves me of the responsibility of having to have an answer, right? And having to be like, oh, hey, look at me. It's not even that. I love the in-between, or homeostasis, or this very beautiful neutral space of like, we're gonna figure it out together.
Or the beauty of, I had the answer. I thought my answer was right. I found out my answer was wrong. And that means nothing about me as a human.
Okay.
That has no bearing on my self-worth. And so I know there's some of you out here who are sitting in the perfectionist place and you're like, okay, well, I don't do that. And I don't do that. That one's not me. I only do that sometimes. That only happens when I'm really stressed out at work. Well, this only happens because of X, Y, and Z. So let's run down some ideas or some things of what may happen or how you might be a perfectionist, right? If we had like, it was a little game show, it'd be like, you might be a perfectionist if. So let's get into a few of those. You may be a perfectionist. You may have some perfectionist tendencies. If you don't like labels, you may be perfectionist adjacent, whatever you want to call it. If you do some of the following, but not limited to just these. So, I don't know, finding fault in what you or others do might be that. And before I go to the next one, not constructive criticism, but finding fault without a solution that's going to both lift up and build the person that you are bringing the constructive criticism to.
Okay, so I may know somebody or may not know someone, okay, who is very, and I'm just going to keep judgy. So when they talk and they see people and they always have a critique for someone. And it's not even merited. It's not even needed. It's not necessary. So is that what you're talking about? Like having something to say or having a response to anything people do, or just an observation, and then you have to name it, and it's critical or judgmental, and there isn't, as you said, there's no solution. There's nothing. It doesn't mean anything. It's just.
I think again, it goes back to the motivation, right? If you notice you're doing some of the things on this list and that's a pattern in your life, you may see those things showing up in other spaces and realize like, oh, I may be experiencing or exhibiting some perfectionist tendencies, because there is the like finding fault, kind of to what we talked about in the last video around like shame people. And so you initially have internalized perfectionism internalized perfectionism, where someone is putting those particular standards and expectations onto you, right? You internalize that. And then it becomes a part of your core belief. You then exhibit that out because it's like, this is what I know. This is familiar. And just because something is familiar does not mean it's safe. It just means it's familiar. And so then you start to exhibit that as well. You're like, so this is what it has to look like. And so why aren't you doing it that way? Why wouldn't you respond in that way? Why wouldn't you answer like that? Why would you wear that? Why don't you know better? Yeah. That's still your own stuff, right? And so these are not one-off. So I'm glad you named that, because also for my fellow perfectionists, it's like, you can find a counter to everything I'm about to say because we're good at that. That's what we do. We can find a counter and an exception to the rule. This is not an absolute truth. This is also not prescriptive. This is, if you notice you do some of these things, just sit with it. Be aware. Also, it's not meant to judge, but it is for you to become more aware. It's like, oh, I may be experiencing more of these tendencies than I thought that I did, right? And if you pushing back on everything that Latoya and I are about to go through,
give it to the Lord. Anyway, listen.
You got a counter for all of them, baby. It may
give it to somebody.
It may be. You got to answer for everyone I'm about to. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at that. So if you said unrealistically high performance standards, right? And there is a difference between, and that, people do this all the time. There's a difference between perfection and excellence. Excellence is doing the best you can with what you have in front of you, sometimes going above and beyond what you thought you could accomplish, right? It's pushing yourself within healthy bounds and boundaries. It is not setting ridiculously high and unrealistic expectations for yourself, because on some level we set those to then self-sabotage and then start that negative self-talk process again. Because then it makes us, and this is number 3, being overly critical of our mistakes. Again, perfectionism robs us of our ability to be human. And so when it robs us of our ability to human, it goes into number 4, which is we start to seek approval for doing something well external of ourselves. You don't think we're enough, so we need someone else to say it for us. Another way that it shows up is procrastinating and avoiding situations that could result in a perceived failure. I'm not even going to try, or I'm going to wait till the last minute to do it. And a lot of times we're like, oh, I do my best work when I procrastinate at the last hour. I said that in college all the time. I write my best papers in the last moment. What that really is about is a perceived control. Because I have all this anxiety, but if I wait to the last minute, I decided I was going to wait to the last minute and do it. And so we have that perceived control. Or if it doesn't go the way we want it to, we can blame it on the fact that we waited to the last minute and not on the fact that we secretly think no matter how much time we have, it wouldn't have been good.
Okay. That lands. I'm glad you added that, because I have a thing about procrastination. I think procrastination get a bad rap. That's just me personally. And let me tell you why.
Okay.
I'm just going to tell you why.
Okay.
I don't think that I procrastinate as much as I once did when I was very much so in that space of being a perfectionist. I will say, it's not that I do my best work at the last minute. It's just that spirit is on my side in such a way that, and I get it now that I'm saying it out loud, I get it, but I really do. It's like when I feel I'm a very energetic, spiritual, attuned being. So for me, when I think of what we name or call procrastination and how I see myself as this being that's very much so intuitive and innate and listens to a specific call, I'm like, I do feel like I do my best work at the last minute because I feel like spirit is coming over me. And is that just my perception?
Do you get anxious, or are you like, spirits can work it out?
I don't get anxious. Okay. Because I think that needs to be clear, because there isn't.
So I wouldn't even call that. I wouldn't call that procrastination.
Okay, good.
I would call that like having faith in your particular process.
I think that's something that needs to be named, because you know that some people, myself was included in that, I had an idea of procrastination, and the way that I work is very specific, and when I would talk to other people about things like this, and it's like, oh, procrastinate, I'm like, well, that sounds kind of like how I move through things and I do
Missing
things.
piece is the anxiety and the chaos. So
Thank
there's
you.
a thing around perfectionism where we kind of are addicted to the chaos of it, right? Something has to be imperfect for us to then fix it. And sometimes we will self-sabotage and create the chaos when there isn't any, so we can have something to fix. And so on one hand, there is that, well, I'm going to wait to the last minute because then I feel like I have some sense of control. There is this space of, if I wait to the last minute, then I can blame it on the fact that, well, I procrastinated. And so it really didn't turn out as good as it could have, versus being like, no, I tried my best and it still didn't turn out the way that I want, because secretly I don't think it would anyway. And there's this feeling of being addicted to chaos, and or not necessarily being addicted to chaos, but being more comfortable in chaos than calm. And so if it is calm, I'm going to create chaos. The difference between the situation that you named and what I'm speaking about is you don't have anxiety or feel that there's chaos in your process. Mm-hmm. You have very deep calm and faith around, this is going to happen by this time, what they always come to me around this time. So I'm going to go and live in my own life and keep doing what I need to do.
Yeah. Thank you. I really wanted to name that and wanted to make that distinction because of, again, understanding Black women and femmes, really understanding how we move through the world and the lens through which we see things, which is very distinct and specific to us. And what is being called something, and we may attach ourselves to it, and that may not even be the case. However, when you said the latter portion of it, I was like, oh, I'm glad you said that, because that makes sense. That anxiety, that chaos, that sense of needing to control, that is the distinction and that is the difference. So
that also, I'm sure, is not what's happening when Spirit's talking to you.
No, not at all.
You're not feeling anxious. You're not feeling chaos. Well, you may be feeling chaos, but it feels safe.
You're not feeling chaos.
It's a, I don't get it, but you're making it make sense to me. And it's not a deep need for control.
Right. And I want to take a moment here, just as a somatic body-based practitioner, really starting to lean in and deepen into that sense of self, or that innate wisdom, whatever you want to call it, the higher self. That's for you to decide. To be able to sit with that and understand that that's what the difference is specifically to you or to us, is something to really start to trust and lean into. Because if for example, there's a deadline or there's something that needs to be done, and you are making attempts to kind of get it done on ahead of time, whatever that looks like. I like to call things spirit time. I'm doing things on spirit time, y'all. And that may work for you, because then there's a space for you to have your best work, your excellence to come through. What does that look like for you, and how do you honor that? I think that's something to name, because of how specific our lived experiences are, and how easy it is to feel, I don't know, what's the right word? To feel
human.
To feel human.
To feel human, and to not overreact to your own humanity. Because perfectionism forces you to overreact to your own humanity.
Yes. Can you just one more time so that I can be right here in my heart space?
You know, I don't remember things after I say them once.
Don't worry. Don't worry.
Perfectionism helps you, or perfectionism makes you overreact to your own humanity. It robs you.
One of my ethos or hallmarks for Rooted and Crowned is there's a few things. I'll say it. So at the end of any of my gatherings or anything, this came through me. Spirit brought it through me, and it came through, and I've been using it and working with it for a long time. May you know and honor your worth. May you experience yourself as whole. I want to really pause that. Experiencing your wholeness for me is really being able to be with your humanity and who you are as a whole being. It's so important. And may you carry the wisdom or the insight from this sadhana, which we talked about in the previous video. A sadhana is a spiritual practice, with you wherever, however long you need it. But then may you always know that you are free to choose and utilizing that freedom, that autonomy, allow it to inform how you take your next breath, how you move your body, when. It's a really beautiful blessing that came through me. And I'm happy to be able to share this, but what you just said really encapsulates what I'm talking about. This, what came through me divinely, is this ability to be with your humanity and not be robbed of it. Okay. All right. Okay.
I love that you named that, because two other things that show up if you have perfectionist-like tendencies is you shrug off compliments and you fail to acknowledge success or victories. And so not only are you robbed of your own humanity, you rob yourself of the victories. Partially because you're just so exhausted and just ready for the thing to be over. It doesn't even allow you to sit in the joy of it. And then two, there is this constant facade that's needing to be fed with a lot of perfectionist behavior. And so you don't even really feel like you deserve, like, secret. You're like, if they really knew me, if they really knew this took, if they really knew everything that actually went wrong. Yeah, it went great. But what you didn't see was you're right. They didn't see it. You're right. They didn't know. You're right. They had no idea. They weren't supposed to, because that was a victory. And maybe they did see some things go wrong. And you know what? It still got accomplished. And that was a victory.
It was a victory because it got done.
Oh my goodness. Sometimes just the done. Perfectionism often robs us of getting to know ourselves and projects expectations of who we are and how we should be onto other people. And so we don't even get to feel the joy or really sit with or even understand what joy feels like in our body, or celebration feels like in our body, or happiness feels like in our body, because we are so familiar with the anxiety and the chaos of it all. And to be honest, a lot of times, especially with Black women, hope can feel dangerous. Because if I feel these positive things, what happens when it gets taken away?
Okay, okay. All right.
What happens when it gets taken away? And so the way I control that, even not even realizing I'm controlling it, because my body is still always trying to keep me safe. And please understand, when I'm naming these things, these are not good or bad. These are our body's way of taking care of us and protecting us the best way it knows how to, given its capacity, given what it's been exposed to, given what it understands. And so I think a lot of times, kind of to the last video, we have shame about how we responded in certain situations and how we reacted in decisions and choices that we made. And then it feeds into that perfectionism. And if you are having any of those moments now, I want you to truly hear me when I say this. You were doing the best you could with what you knew in the moment. And that version of you did the best that it could. And that should be celebrated, that it did the best that it could. And this new version of you that may be getting curious about where your perfectionism is showing up in your life will evolve into a new version of you. And that will be great, right? And that person will be great. And that person will be doing the best they can with their capacity and what they now know. But none of what's being said in this moment is to have you think back on how you may have showed up in previous experiences, situations, relationships, and be like, oh, see, that's what was wrong with me. Because your body was doing what it knew how to do to stay safe. The reason I talk about perfectionism the way that I do, especially with Black women, is to let us know we can put the perfectionism down. That coping mechanism worked for what it worked for. We no longer need it. And I know some of you are saying, well, in this space, I still don't feel safe at work. I still don't feel safe here. I still don't feel safe there. There is a way to work through those types of things without it, with it being an external working through, like, how do I protect myself? But I feel safe and feel worthy within.
Right.
And perfectionism doesn't let us feel worthy and safe within. And that's the work for us to do, separate of how do we protect ourselves in predominantly white spaces? How do we protect ourselves in spaces where we are still the global majority, but maybe minority in the room, right? I'm not taking that for granted or negating that, because I have been in those spaces as well. But right now, these conversations are centered around us and how do we make ourselves feel safe? And how do we feel worthy and whole? And I'm telling you, perfectionism does not get you there. Firsthand perfectionism does not get you there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in this moment, I'm reflecting on some of the ways that perfectionism is still currently showing up in some specific areas that it's actually showing up and manifesting in my life. And it's something for me to reflect upon because, again, it's that wholeness of that humanity thing that I keep coming back to. And as I'm navigating into a new season in my life, I definitely don't want to be carrying those things. But I love that you said that there's no need to, again, possibly start picking up shame or like, I should have done this or I should have done that. Because we really want to give ourselves so much grace, so much space, and compassion, y'all. Compassion is really what we need to be giving to ourselves first and foremost, because from that space and from that lens, we can face and sit with and be with the ways that we can be more rooted in our true selves or connected to authenticity, mindful authenticity, by the way. I don't just name authenticity. It's just like,
that's a thing,
That's a thing. Like mindfully
right.
authentic. Yeah.
Right.
Ooh.
So now the question, because, fellow perfectionist. So what am I supposed to do? What am I doing? What am I doing? Thanks. Now what? Right. So here's the thing about the now what. I realized, I remember when I first started to kind of have some of these thoughts and revelations in my own life around how perfectionism is actually not helping me accomplish any of the things that I think it's helping me to accomplish. And I had this huge breakthrough and I was like, oh, I got to call my friend and I got to tell her what happened because, girl, breakthrough moment. And I was like, girl, you know what? I think I might struggle with perfectionism. And it was dead silence on the phone. And I was like, she's processing like me. I know that's a bomb, right? Silence on the phone. And I was like, hello. And she came back and she goes, yeah, I know. Wait, what? Betrayal? What you mean? Huh? Say what? Ma'am, not the response I was expecting. What do you mean you know? And so then she proceeded to rattle off a few stories of where I had showed up as a perfectionist. I was like, oh, okay, so that's cool. All right, well, thank you, girl, bye. Hung up the phone, called a few more friends. Everybody knew but me. Latoya, everybody knew but me. So in true perfectionist mode, I was like, all right, well, let's get to fixing me quickly. Ooh. Again, one extreme to the other. And this happens whether you have perfectionist tendencies or not, especially in this world of like, oh, I got to get healed and I got to be on my healing journey and I got to do all these things to be a better version of me. There is a chasm between being aware that you need to work on something and getting to the place where you have worked on it.
Right.
Right. That is why healing is ing. That part in the middle, that's the work, right? That's the, I did something and then I realized 3 months later, oh, wait, that's the thing. That's the pattern. Okay. Note to self. Cool. I got it. And then it takes less time. Maybe it takes a month for you to come to that realization. And then maybe it only takes 2 weeks. And then you realize at the moment you're doing that thing. And you don't necessarily stop doing it, but at least you're aware that you're doing that thing. It's like, oh no, I'm choosing to be petty right now. I'm aware of what this is. I'm being petty, but I'm also actively willing to accept the consequences. Or just like, I don't even know how we got here. And I think with perfectionism, we move so quick to trying to fix something so we don't fail that we forget the grace and the journey and the process. And we get so fixated on the solution that we still rob ourselves of our humanity. And so one of the first offerings or suggestions I want to give for those of us that are struggling with or moving through or trying to find new coping mechanisms outside of perfectionism is redefining our relationship to the word failure.
Okay, yes. Now we get into the good stuff. Yes. I'm very excited. I did not know she was going to say that, y'all. Yes.
So here's the thing about failure. When everything around your worth is external to you, failure is a knock on who you are as a human. It is not something you experience, right? And so instead of thinking, well, I failed, I must not be good enough, I failed, the world is ending, or I failed, they have figured me out. It's, Okay. And if you have to use the word, because I hate sometimes people are like, don't use the word failure, use this word. No, because there's times when I've absolutely failed at things. Like, absolutely great example. I'm just telling on myself now. I decided to do a dance battle with this girl on the East Coast. I'm from the South. I'm from Texas. I didn't know some of this pop lock stuff that y'all do on the East Coast. So I'm over here twerking, doing a thing. This girl comes over here, pops lock, takes my heart. Wait, what? Wait a minute. I didn't know were those the rules? There's no twerk I can do to come back from having someone take my heart. Okay. That was a failure. That was an absolute failure in the dance battle. I lost, but I learned something. And that's the thing about failure, right? It teaches you something. And so there's still a win there. I learned very quickly to understand my surroundings before I get into another dance battle with anybody else. It was bad. It was very bad. But failure is about learning. And I have to tell myself now this, even to this day, I run my own business. I have my own company. I am still making mistakes. There is no blueprint for what I do. And so I make mistakes and things don't meet my expectations on a regular basis. And I have to remember that failure or that misstep or that expectation not being met is not indicative of who I am as a person. It's actually a beautiful learning opportunity because now I know what not to do in this particular space or what I need to do differently. But it's separating my core value and my core worth from something I'm experiencing. And that is one of the hardest things to do as it relates to changing my relationship to failure.
Okay. I'm so happy that this is one of the core aspects of deepening into being a recovering perfectionist, but specifically failure. I think failure gets a bad rap. Listen, if you're not failing at something, you're not doing anything. You're not
if you've always been taught, if you only got praise when you did things well, you see failure as the enemy and you see it connected to your complete. Yeah.
I think deepening into, I think also there's this fear of the word. I really, our education system. Okay, this addiction to meritocracy. Okay, all of the things start coming up through my being that I am like actively rejecting these days. And failure is something that I'm really into these days. I'm saying like as a true concept of learning lessons. When you can learn lessons, you are being more of yourself. You're learning more of yourself. There is space for wholeness. I'm going to get back to wholeness and healing again because I wanted to say something about that too, y'all. But failure, I honor and respect where we are. However, failure is something that, is it the word fail that you are terrified around? Is it the story that you're creating around the failure that you are terrified of? Or is it that you are afraid to be judged or seen as not worthy? Okay. All of that still is things that are happening outside of you. These are things that are happening outside of you. Deepen into relationship beyond the word and the experience and how it impacts you as a person. And that is where what was just named, there's the opportunity for the lessons there. You learned something, and we want to learn stuff in this experience and in this incarnation. And I think that is so beautiful. And the other thing that I wanted to say was, because you see, I'm giving y'all the energy. I give energy, y'all. And this is because we are recording. I need to give y'all a specific type of energy because I could do a whole bunch of other stuff. However, let me just say, healing, y'all, this is an addiction that that's why I say very specifically experiencing your wholeness, because healing can quickly become, I'm not enough, I'm a project to be fixed. It's just a bunch of,
it goes from self-care to self-punishment, like you said before.
Self-punishment, y'all, what have we just talked about? Self-care to self-punishment. I'm not with it. Rooted and crowned is not with that. We are here to be whole, all of ourselves. What Ashante already said earlier, hey, if you did something and you're reflecting and you're remembering, don't create any judgment. You were doing the best you could with what you had. The great
Mariah Carey. Right. Doing the best I can with what I got.
Drops music. So
if you get nothing else from this video on perfectionism, this needs to be our new collective motto. I'm doing the best I can with what I got.
And say with your whole chest and a shrug and just just let it.
I guarantee you, your best is most people's baseline. I mean, your baseline.
Are we doing this? Because
no, I said it wrong. I guarantee you, your baseline is most people's best.
Let me tell you something. In this body, so I can flip my hair back. In this body, and how we show up, just a random Tuesday at 3:40 is East Coast time. Is the best of the best. And that's a baseline. Just, hey, this is a suggestion. And it's the most brilliant suggestion that has ever experienced and been. I want y'all, hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm going to start talking real reckless and I don't want to do that. All I'm saying is.
We want it.
Listen, mediocrity is running rampant in these streets.
What's running rampant?
Being mediocre and mediocrity, and they are, listen, all I'm saying is your baseline, baby, is exceptional. Chill. I promise you can chill because you already know what I'm talking about. You already know. I just needed to be seen and felt and heard by two Black women who are out here getting it done. And by getting it done, it means being our true selves, being brilliant and learning.
And making a lot of mistakes.
And making mistakes and still showing up. And still giving ourselves grace and reminding one another to give ourselves grace, encouraging one another. These are things that are so beautiful about us. But please know you are whole. You are well, all is well and will be well all of the time. Keep going. You got this. Whatever it is, you've got it. Darling, because they out here, whoever the they is. Who and is them? Yeah. Baby, look, that's what I'll be saying. Like, don't put me on y'all, because all I'm saying is...
She said what she said.
Stop letting these people scam you. All right, I'm done. I'm finished now. Just stop letting people scam you. That's it.
But it needed to be said.
It had to be said. I had to start flailing. I had to get this energy out, y'all. I'm sorry. I apologize. But...
Why? Well, also, we're not doing that because you didn't cause harm. So you're not apologizing for not causing harm.
You're right. Okay, that's my thing. My thing, so this is one of my things, right? My thing is how I present, because things can land heavily in people's system, their spirit, their laps, their being when I speak or when they're in my presence. And I learned, again, this is a learned thing, that it was my beingness was a lot. Even as a little girl, my beingness was a lot for people. And I kind of learned how to navigate that. And this is something that I still work through. This is something that I deeply work through. When I show up, am I too much? And when I show up, is it going to be too much? And I am always thinking about, okay, let me make sure that because I don't want to cause harm, because my showing up was a perceived show harm, to be harmful. But it didn't have anything to do with me. However, this is how I perceived it as a child. And then I carried this into adulthood and all of the things. Showing up and being who you truly are. Speaking to myself now, but I'm sharing it with you. Showing up and being who you are is not a mistake and it's not a problem. So thank you, Ashante, for reminding me not to apologize, because I will apologize because I don't want to be harmful. But sometimes these things need to be said.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. If I now, and this is a recent shift in my mindset. Don't trust me. I did not come out like this. I didn't wake up like this. This is taking a lot of healing work. If I have to choose between harming myself and harming someone else,
here we go.
I am choosing self. And that is not selfish. That is not selfish. That's self-love.
Okay. Okay. All right. Here we go.
But that is a topic for a whole nother conversation because I'm at war with the word selfish, but we'll talk about that at a later time. But back to the whole point of failure. Also, you know, if you in a dance battle, find out if people pull the hearts out when they do the dance, because you should probably know that because I didn't, but I learned it quickly. But the CEO of Essence did a video on LinkedIn. Caroline, I think it's Wagner. I apologize if I'm saying it wrong. Maybe we can put the link of the video at the end. And she says in the video, I fail 5 times a day. Like I try to fail. Right. Yeah. And so it's also demystifying failing, right? It's demystifying and taking the power out of failing and turning it into, like, what I'm really saying is I learn 5 new things a day. Mm-hmm. I learned 5 new things a day because I know what I'm good at. Like, I know what I'm good at and I know where to learn where I'm good at. And I'm also learning in these spaces because I failed at this thing. And I'm like, oh, now I know X. Now I know I don't want to do this anymore. Now I know. Right. And so it's learning more, right? It is, the irony is you are perfecting your knowledge by failing. Yeah. Ooh, the irony of it. And so the last thing I want to bring into the room in terms of like, okay, well, what are some things you can do now? What first? Well, actually, 1A is do not start shaming yourself and judging yourself for how you've acted before you watched this video because you were doing the best you had with what you knew. Right. And even if you knew more, you didn't have the capacity to do more outside of what you were doing. Right. Because I think a lot of times people forget that healing requires both an awareness and a capacity to make change. It's not just awareness. There's a capacity to make change that's required as well. And so you were showing up a certain way and you didn't have the capacity. And you may find out now in this video, you're showing up a certain way. And that's the growth that's happening in the moment. A little bit later, capacity may come up, right? So that is 1A. 1B, redefining your relationship to the word failure. Mm-hmm. 1C, don't get into dance battles. The second thing, or the third thing, whatever number we're on, asking yourself because one of the things that happen with those of us that struggle with perfectionism, we play 50-11 scenarios out in our head before something even happens because we need to make sure we are never caught off guard. That also means so many negative thoughts come into our mind while we're processing all these scenarios. What people don't realize is when you're playing these scenarios out in your mind, your body is experiencing them like they're real. So half these things never even happen. And you know this, Toya, but your body has experienced every scenario. Every time Linda in accounting said the thing, even though y'all didn't have the conversation yet, your body's already mad at Linda. Yep. If you don't believe me, think about those times where you have that dream where you're mad at someone and you wake up and you're mad at them and you don't really understand why you're still mad at them. I don't even know why I'm mad at you, but I'm mad at you because our bodies are like, oh, this is what we're doing. Okay. So 2 things I invite you to start asking yourself when all the scenarios start playing in your mind and that negative self-talk really starts to like lean in. What is true? What can I control? This thought starts coming. Well, what if, and I can't, and I should, and maybe what is actually true right now? What's true is I need to get this project finished. I have this much time to do it. I don't have these resources, but I do have this. Okay, what can I actually control? This is all I can actually control in the moment. This is all I can actually control in the moment because anxiety focuses on the fear of what might be, not on what's currently there. And perfectionism tries to fix the idea of what might be. It's not even tangible. And so I invite you to ask yourself, what is true? And what can I actually control right now? And I promise you the first few times you do it, it's not going to help. Not going to help. Not going to help at all. Because then you're going to go into, well, what I control is if I had more control, because I know, because I do, because it's me, because I'm you, because we us. So just know the first few times it ain't going to help. It ain't going to help a thing. I'm telling you now, I'm a level set for you. It ain't going to help. And you're going to feel like you failed. Don't. You're going to learn that you need to take the deep breaths, go back to one of our other videos where we did the somatic breath work, start incorporating that, and then ask yourself again. Yeah. And then ask yourself again. And then ask yourself again. And continue to ask yourself as many times as you need to get a quick calm or as calm as you can be in the situation that you are currently in so you can see more clear about how to respond.
Wow. These are beautiful. I love those questions. And those are things I'm definitely going to reflect on for some current circumstances in my life. What is true? What can I control? What is true? What can I control? Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. This has been amazing, and it's truly illuminated some things that I need to work with and be curious about for myself. And I'm definitely going to utilize it. I'm so grateful to you, Ashante. This has been amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate all the things that you have taught me and all the questions that you brought up and how vulnerable you have been. Please understand the things that we are talking about in this series. It's really what we're also experiencing. Like, we're actively on the same journey as each of you. So yeah, if this has helped you or sparked curiosity or even sparked resistance and anger, because that means there's something in there that you get to explore.
Honor that aversion, y'all. Honor it. It's really, really something. There's some sweet stuff there.
It is. You know, if you real mad at us right now, great.
Yeah.
Get curious about that and then share the video with someone else so they can be mad with you. And y'all can both be mad about being perfectionists. Everybody mad about being perfectionists. And working through those perfectionist behaviors. But definitely share the video if any part of this resonated with you. Special thank you to the Loveland Foundation for giving us this opportunity.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. This has been amazing. I have truly enjoyed every moment with you and every opportunity to share with the greater community. I look forward to seeing y'all out here. We are going to offer you some information about where to find us and how you can work with us if you need any support. Please, as always, subscribe to the Loveland Foundation, where we provide accessible mental health resources for everyone on their journey. And remember, always remember this, don't forget, this journey is yours. This wholeness journey is a lifelong experience. But while you're on this journey, remember to enjoy it. Find those moments, those seconds, that breath of pleasure, joy, and excitement for this life that you are experiencing.
Until next time.
Love y'all. Peace, y'all.